Nobody wakes up in the morning and say, hey, I want to look for someone to have conflict with. So generally speaking, I think conflicts take away
What's up, AventisLearning? We are back with the second season of Aventis Knows. I'm your host, 𝗟𝗂𝗯𝘀𝗰𝗿𝗄, and for those of you trying to find your way around the corporate ocean or trying to hashtag up your game with a career, this is where you should be. For today's episode, we'll be discussing the productivity destroyer, also known as workplace conflicts. So brace yourselves, everyone. This episode may get a little hot. Our guest for today has over 25 years of experience in human and organizational development in Singapore and in the region. Yet all these aside, his true passion lies in designing effective and customized learning interventions to help organizations to change and transform. He's a learning strategist and founder of 5U. Let's welcome Edwin Sim, everyone.
Hello, hi Mira, hi everyone.
Hi Edwin.
Hi.
Tell us more about the work that you do.
Okay, so I am running a leadership training and coaching practice. I've been on my own for the last 10 years or so, but started my career in learning and development about 18 years ago. And I was doing selling training courses, programs, consulting services. And then there I am, 2011, decided to take a jab at it myself and turn full-time doing consulting, training, and coaching. Yeah, that's what I do, right?
So coming back to today's topic, how would you define workplace conflicts?
Simply put, I think workplace conflicts happen because two persons cannot agree, all right? And when they don't agree, then we need to ask ourselves, what do they not agree about, right? So I think sometimes it's perspective, sometimes it's a lack of resources. And the third thing I can think of, what is workplace conflict, usually happens because, people, have disagreement, or they may have personality differences that leads to them having those conflicts. Yeah, so that's how I define workplace conflict. Yeah.
But what are the effects of workplace conflict on an individual?
I think if you look at conflicts, right? Nobody wakes up in the morning and say, hey, I want to look for someone to have conflict with. So generally speaking, I think conflicts take away time and energy from the work focus and what needs to be achieved at work. So people end up having to resolve conflicts. So I think time is one factor. I think the impact on business. The other one is also on relationships, right? So when workplace relationships are impacted negatively by this unmanaged workplace conflict, then it can lead to other things like, communication issues, right? Teams or departments within the same organization not working effectively together. So I think the impact can be felt at these two levels. At a personal level, the person himself or herself, I think there will be some amount of stress. I don't think we all want to walk into an office having to worry about who's the person I'm having conflicts with or being antagonized with. So I think the personal stress does have its impact and effect on personal stress as well when it comes to workplace conflicts.
So do you think these workplace conflicts can get really bad?
I've seen people, thrown files on the floor. They have decided to quit the team or quit the company because of conflicts when it's not handled properly. So it can be really bad. I've even heard of stories of people in conflicts and they start to become revengeful. And if they're managers, they use their staff to take a jab at the other department. So it can be bad if it's not managed well. Yeah.
Okay. Well, in your experience, was there a time where a workplace conflict got out of hand?
I think fortunately for me, no. I think if I can think of my own personal experiences, right? I think one of the most common ones that most of us face is that when we are in a conflict, right? Sometimes we say things that that may not have necessarily been processed
Yeah.
thoroughly, and so in those moments we may say things that hurt the relationship or erode the trust, the teamwork, that's already in place. So I think those are what I've seen happen. And a lot of times it calls for a lot of humility as well as putting away the ego, right? For the better of the team and the organization. Sometimes we just have to let go some of those personal hurts and personal emotions and just, extend that bridge to mend those relationships with our other colleagues and team members. So yeah, I've seen some of those happen, but fortunately for me, I've not seen people. I've seen people throwing files on the floor, yeah, but I've not seen people throwing files at each other. I heard of stories like that. Yeah, really, you can hear, they're throwing files across the meeting room because they cannot agree. Yeah, but those are really bad.
Those, do you think has like a certain link to like maybe anger management or something?
Well, I think, yeah, if you deep dive, I think a number of reasons. I think, mental wellness, people are stressed up.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I think, a very good point that you brought up. I think a lot of times conflicts are just the surface, right? It's just the tip of the iceberg. There are many other things that's below the iceberg that are possibly the reasons that's causing all this conflict. So a lot of times in my training classes, I tell managers that conflicts are a symptom, right? So they are a sign that something needs to be done. And usually it's you got to dig a little bit deeper to find out what's the cause of the conflict. Yeah.
So like right now, the way we're looking at it, usually, or maybe like stereotypically when we hear workplace conflicts, it always sounds very bad. Is it always bad though?
Hey, not really. Yeah. So whilst most of us do not wake up every morning and think, who can I have or find conflict with? But when it happens, sometimes you realize that some of our best friends today are those that we had conflicts with, right? Every great marriage has conflicts, right? So I think it's not always bad. It's about how you manage it and how you leverage the conflict to turn it into, a lemonade, right? So you've been thrown a lemon, but how do you turn it into a lemonade? So I can think of, for example, right? Sometimes innovation comes out of conflict, right? Creative solutions happen because we have something that we disagree about or we don't see eye to eye. So now we need a third option, all right? And the third option, right, it's not your option or my option, but it's our option or our solution. And that sometimes can bring about creative ways of whether it be presented in the products that we come up with, new creative processes or systems that we put in place at work because we couldn't agree in the first place. But now we come to a collaborative efforts, all right, to work something out together. So I think it's about how you manage it. And if it's managed well, there can be good outcomes for conflicts. Yeah.
So it's more of like the process to finding that answer to how we can maybe work together from that conflict.
That's right. Yeah. In fact, if I could point you to this book, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, Patrick Lencioni, right, the author of this book, he says that there are 5 dysfunctions, and right at the bottom is this first thing: lack of trust. Right. So if there's no trust, team, conflicts happen. The next one, surprisingly, was not conflict, but fear of conflict. He says that if we fear conflict, then we cannot be at our best. All right. I mean, if I fear having conflict with you, Mira, I may not speak my mind. I would try to speak things that would be agreeable with you. And when that happens, we go back to the fundamental, right? Is there trust? Why do I fear having this conflict with Mira or the person in my team? And so I don't speak my mind because there's no trust. And so when there's a fear of conflict, it actually can lead to other things. So we call this what's that word? False harmony, or it's not real. We're having this harmony because we're just afraid of conflict and we don't want to talk about things that really matter to us, or what's really in our deepest minds and hearts. And so we avoid the conflict, but at the teamwork level, we're not there because we don't trust each other.
So trust in this case in a team is very important.
Yeah, I think it's like the engine oil. If there's no trust, then I think you're setting yourself up for more conflicts. Yeah, I think about the times when most Singaporeans, if you are a Singaporean male and you have not escaped your national service, you would remember the first couple of weeks in your basic military training, right, in national service. You're put into very highly volatile situations in a team. And that's, I don't know whether somebody intentionally designed this. I think so, it is, but I have no confirmation. But I think it's intentionally designed to help everyone, or to get everyone to go into this contentious, highly volatile, where people speak their mind and sometimes they blame each other, create those conflicts. Because it is through those conflicts and the resolving of those conflicts that ultimately the entire platoon or the team, right, really gets to know one another. And I'm sure, Meera, you have friends who have been through national service. They'll come out and tell you, those were the most fun couple of weeks. Yeah, it was tough, right? We wish it never happened to us, but looking back, right, I think that really brought the entire team together. I think that's what conflict does.
Is there like a certain line where we have to draw when it comes to workplace conflicts?
I think it's and this is really hard, right? We are all human beings. I think the line to be drawn is that let's focus on the issues that's causing the conflict, without getting into making things personal. All right, but this is really hard because, like I said, we're dealing with human beings, right? I always tell leaders that you can't expect everybody to like you, and certainly, I mean, our politicians know that, right? But when you have a conflict with someone, right, you need to recognize that it is the issues that we are dealing with, and not the person, right? We're not making it personal, but it is challenging, all right, because we often tie the issue or the conflict, right, with the person, the very person who is seated across us. Yeah, but I think that would be what I would say. It's to realize that as a leader, as a manager, we sometimes need to separate the issue from the person, all right, and then tackle the issue. And if there is a personal, issue at hand, we need to maybe do this separately. So solve the issue first, all right, and then not forgetting that if there's a personality or some relationship issues that need to be worked out, work on it, right? But that's how I would approach workplace conflicts: is to think of the bigger picture, the issue, and work on it. Yeah.
But is there like a maybe step by step into how we can deal with workplace conflicts?
I like to use this, what I call the 3A technique, all right, I use it actually for receiving feedback, actually, but I think it can work in conflict as well. The first is to acknowledge, all right, to recognize that there is a conflict. Instead of trying to run away from it, recognize and acknowledge that there is a conflict. The second A is ask questions. All right, and I think these questions can be asked of ourselves, all right, and also ask of the other person that we're having conflict with. And this asking is not about blaming or the kind of fault-finding kind of asking, all right, but it's about asking curious questions like, hey, what is the issue? What do I really want? What do you want? What's important for both of us right now? Where are our mutual areas that we can work together? What are the areas that we cannot afford to give up or compromise? So asking questions like this in our minds, and also certainly in the conversation with the other party, reveals a lot of things, right? We go deeper under the iceberg, right, to find out more things. So that's the second A that I will do. Ask questions, not in a blaming way, but in a curious and what I call the learner mindset way, to want to learn more about the situation. And the third A, I would say, is actions. All right, we need to then decide collectively, what do we want to take as our actions with regards to this issue? Do we leave it? Do we agree that maybe we have no solution at this point? Let's come back 2 months down the road and revisit, or do we want to work immediately on it? I'm not saying that all conflicts have to be resolved here and now, because some conflicts it's not possible to be resolved immediately. But I think a conscious decision to have an action to close the loop That would be my 3 A's step-by-step process to dealing with conflicts.
Like, have you come across like maybe people who are reluctant to like maybe take action into resolving a conflict?
Oh yeah, I always believe it takes 2 hands to clap. And if you have an unwilling dance partner, right, you can imagine, right, it will be tough. But I think we do what we can as leaders, as managers. I think the first of all is, the first thing is that we do not end up being the unwilling partner. I think that's the very first step. And if we can get the team and create a culture within our organization where, everybody, believes in this, that we can all be responsible for our own actions, and take steps towards creating the kind of culture we want, then I think we minimize this possibility of having unwilling people who are unwilling to resolve conflicts. And if the culture is so strong, then these people who are unwilling to resolve conflicts will find that they are the odd one out, right?
Oh, no.
And over time, hopefully through natural attrition, right, they leave the team, or they, for maybe for even for the better, which is they decide to change the way they behave and act in the workplace. Yeah, but I'm sure, right, in all our own personal experiences, we have come across where you're willing to work, you want to solve the conflict, but the other person's not willing. And in this case, I think sometimes it's just a function of time, waiting for the right time, so that the right opportunity and timing can come, and the person is willing to sit down across the table and have that conversation with you again. But you can't force. Yeah.
So is there a way that we can, maybe as like a whole organization, is there a way we can avoid conflict altogether?
I think that's a great question, right? I think if we approach this question from this angle, then I think we may fall into the trap of what Patrick Lencioni says, the fear of conflict, right? So instead of avoiding workplace conflict altogether, I'm thinking that perhaps organizations and teams should be more aligned towards or attuned towards how can we get ready for conflict. So, I can't think of any human being that I know of who has never fallen sick, right? But everybody tries to avoid falling sick. But we need to recognize that when the day comes when we fall sick, right, we need to take medication, we need to see a doctor and do whatever that's needed. So I think it's about knowing, creating trust, right? That's the vitamin, all right? The engine oil, right? Finding opportunities to have clear communications within the team, within the organization, making sure that everyone knows their roles, there's no ambiguity. So all these are what I call the vitamins, the preventive maintenance part, right? To ensure that we have everyone ready. Then the other part is to deal with the conflict. Recognize that it will be part and parcel of workplace, team management, team development. And when it happens, let's address conflicts. Let's sit down. Let's, I given you the 3A. There are many different ways of dealing with conflicts, right? So if it's a difficult person or a relationship issue, then we use other tools, right, to look at it. So I think it's about equipping ourselves and getting ourselves ready, first of all, to recognize that we cannot totally eliminate conflict. In fact, it's unhealthy. Secondly, to be ready with some tools or processes, or even have a system in place. How do we deal with inter-department conflicts? So putting those things down. Yeah. And the third thing, I think it's about realizing that, as human beings, right, we will have different ways of trying to resolve conflict. I think whilst I say that, we try to have a system or process, a 3A, for example, that I shared with you, people find different ways of resolving conflicts their own way, right? For me, it could be, maybe coming up to your table, Mira, and putting a post-it pad on your monitor and say, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have shouted at you at the meeting, right? For someone else, it could be, walking up to Mira and say, hey, I apologize for my behavior yesterday. For someone else, it could be, totally avoiding Mira for the first maybe 5 days or a week, and then only coming back next week and say, apologize or write you an email or something. So I think recognizing that we have all different ways of, as individuals, right, to resolving conflict, but making sure that we still come back to the last A. We need to take action. We cannot just let it be. Otherwise, it becomes a volcano, when it's not resolved or addressed. I think that would be my take towards workplace conflict. You can't avoid it. Be prepared and find the best way, right, to prepare the team to deal with conflicts confidently.
So in essence, don't run away from conflict, just face it head on together.
Yep, that's right. Yeah. The more you run away from it, I think it's gonna, the ball will come back, It's a curveball that will come around you again. Yeah.
So is there maybe a myth on workplace conflicts? Is there some misconceptions that we can address to workplace conflicts?
I think when people see a happy team, they look very cohesive. They look like they are laughing together. They are enjoying work together, and people think that there's no conflict. I often think that they are able to be cohesive and be able to laugh together and work and play hard together. It's because that there have been conflicts that have happened in the past, and that's why they can now be so real with each other. Of course, if you look at Bruce Tuckman's team development stages, right? Those of you who are interested, you can go and Google Bruce Tuckman. He says that we go through different stages, right? And sometimes, and one of the second stage he talks about is the storming part, right? So the form, storm, norm, and perform. And the storming part is sometimes what we don't see. We think that a team, just overnight, became the best, right? But if you look at all the top sports teams, right, organizations, teams, right, they all have went through some, rough stages, right, to get to where they are. So I think instead of looking at and envying a cohesive team, I think the myth would be, or the myth to really, how should I say, to demystify is to ask ourselves this question: how did they overcome that storm? How did they overcome those conflicts to lead to where they are? I think that would be one of the biggest myths for me, that people think that a cohesive team just happened by chance. No, it's by planful actions, and a lot of times those planful actions involve learning how to deal with conflicts as a team.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for listening all the way till the end. That's all we have for today, but do tune in next Friday because we're going to have Edwin back here with us to dive deeper into how we can deal with difficult colleagues. As usual, if you guys have any topics or suggestions you'd like us to know about, feel free to tap on our DMs on Instagram at AventisLearning. That's all we have for now, and we'll catch you next week. Bye!